Hello, everybody, and welcome to another silly show. Yes, this one is possibly a bit back on track. This is continuing the meta, and I haven't done that for absolutely ages. Probably 6 months, possibly longer than that. In fact, I'm not even sure I've done how much I've done this year, and we're in September. And because of a number of other factors, my recent recordings have all been me playing Chester and doing some BT tactics too, and showcasing a bit of that. And I was very conscious that I'd stopped at the meta at quite a tough point with the craziness of Arsenal, and I'd still got a long way to go. Unfortunately, life and work and family and everything else has been busy, and it's been until now that I haven't really had time to breathe and look at this. So, recalling going back and looking back in history, the last one I did was the craziness of Arsenal with the vehicle rules, where cards that mentioned mech. Let's just look at an example of pushing the envelope. Here's the original one. One of your mechs gets +3 attack and receives 3 damage. That didn't work on vehicles because they were vehicles and not mechs. And then they changed it and had the word unit added, which included vehicles and mechs and battle armor, each being a subtype, and then reprinted all of everything in Commander's Edition as a great way to just reprint cards with a word change and get more money out of the populace. Sorry for the cynicism. So we finished at Arsenal with all the vehicles and everything else. And we're kind of 98-ish with the advent of Arsenal. We have had the original first run of the Unlimited limited set and Counter-Strike, and then the first World Championship. And then after that, it's been Bish Bash Bosh. We've gone Mercenaries, Mech Warrior, and Arsenal. Literally 3 expansions every 3 months, or every 3 or 4 months over the next 9 to 12 months calendar year before Worlds. So Arsenal was the last set released before Worlds. But we're in a position now where other things started to rise or started to happen, and I'm kind of looking ahead. Probably 2 or 3 of these time. There's the World's decks of 98, which is freely available. There's a couple of Sandhurst decks that won. There's a Clan Boom Wolf. There's a Clan Elemental deck. There are 3 or 4 Inner Sphere pilot decks, and one alternative. The alternative being Mechless. And in all honesty, if it hadn't been for the draw, it quite possibly would have won. It was very strong against all the other decks. But that's another story for another day. But what I'm going to look at today is the rise of Mechless. Where did it come from? So you don't just rock up on a morning and think, do you know what? I've had enough of my mech. I'm going to go and design a Mechless deck. It doesn't come out like that. And there's probably a lot more history in there than I've in that reasoning than I've got documented or stored away. But I do have a few ideas or a few parts of history. So this is the 29th of the 9th, 97. So this is after Mercenaries. And this is lately I've been ripping into open boosters and noting a lot of powerful subterfuge cards, which has got me thinking, the Mechless deck. Well, I'm just working on it now, and I haven't got the numbers part, but I think it'll be a politics tactics deck. Well, maybe. So I can get the resources. Disguise coordinates, definitely. You've got to delay while you set up. Mech trap. Maybe this is just all the juicy subterfuge stuff. Aerospace fighter missions, bribe pilots, minefields. God, where does anyone play minefield? Strat bombing, last stand of Hanover with a bribe pilot, temporary ceasefire, black market, Sun Tzu or Melissa, full recursion, Salvage Strike Crew maybe as well, Comstar Support, Outreach Marine, Orbital Bombardment, and Guerrilla Support. Yes, those are the ones, those operations with counters on. Where's me what's it gone? Where's me lackey gone? Where's me lackey gone? Let's just have a quick look at that. Orbital Bombardment. And I suppose the version here, let's just get rid of that so we don't get any of the BT2 cards, and we've got the original set. You put 3 counters on it, you leave it a turn. Each turn you leave it, you take a counter off, and then at the end of that, scrap Orbital Bombardment to deal 2 damage to any mech or site for each card you scrap from your hand. Seems pretty pants, really. Guerrilla Support is the one I've used because it at 4/9 is blooming impossible to remove, or very hard to remove, and when the last counter on a Guerrilla Support has been removed, scrap the Guerrilla Support. Opponent scraps a card at the beginning of his or her turn until the end of game. So there's a constant pressure there of 1 damage each time. So you can see that the thought process slightly. Disguised coordinates is probably the crux of this. So let's just have a quick look at disguised coordinates. Here it is. This is the version that was in play at that time, which is the mercenaries version. Yes, scrap disguised coordinates when it's in play. Well, when it's revealed, you may activate it only when opponent attacks. It's got to sit there in your construction region with counters on it. Okay, and then when someone attacks you, you flip this over until the end of the turn. So you do this on the first attack, and any subsequent attacks, it still works. You may redirect any attack to any site you control other than the scrap heap. And you can't direct it to the scrap heap. Why don't you direct it to the scrap heap? Because you cannot deal damage to the scrap heap, because it's where all the dead stuff is. You can see here, while they've changed it in Commander's Edition, for each attack against you this turn, including this one, you may choose any site that is a legal target for that attack and redirect it to the site. Yeah. So this is literally what it says. So if we go, let's just pop that in there for the moment and go back to our Guerrilla Support. Here's our Guerrilla Support. This is a card I have played. I played against Chester recently. And let's look at the standard Dasher Prime. Here is our Dasher Prime doing 0-2. He's doing 3 damage in that bottom right hand corner. You send it over when it attacks using disguised coordinates to reassign it or move it from attacking your stockpile to attacking the Guerrilla Support. The Guerrilla Support has 4 armor. The Dasher has 3 attack. It bounces off the armor and absolutely nothing happens. And that's a wasted attack, and that can be the next attack and the next attack and the next attack, unless you put groups together. Okay, so this was the start of the thought process, moving this against the really heavily armored stuff, so it doesn't really do much damage. So you don't take anything, everything stays in play, and basically it leaves your opponent in a null state because they can't damage your card, and it's like scratching a tank with a toothpick. You're not going to get through the armor. So that, and then the comment at the bottom, oh well, maybe I should just stick to my other deck. Okie dokie. So that was one of those. And then, because Arsenal brought in a number of things, including terrains and other things started to get a little more interesting. And effectively having had Mechless decks, because everything was full of tanks and hovercraft and choppers, and there weren't any mechs in those at all. Even the amazingly costed Night Sky didn't even get into those decks. It shows how good vehicles were. The thought process then turns to, well, can I actually have an arty deck? can I have an artillery deck that deals with everything as it comes in? And this was kind of an attempt to do that. And here we have the deck, or the start of the deck, which was played one evening and went through multiple iterations. 6 long toms, 6 thumper, 3 arrow 4, 6 artillery bombard. Okay, well, let's just have a quick look at those. Let's just have a look at how good or bad those particular ones are. So let's have a look at long tom. Long tom battery, very expensive at 4, and it's a 0-3, not very durable. Tap, deal 3 damage to 1 site. Use this ability during a mission trace. It's 3 damage, so you're not going to resource denial with this because it's just going to bounce off the armor, but it does 3 damage. Okie dokie. We have thumper battery. Thumper battery, which deals 2 damage to 1 site, but it's half the price. Use this during missions, but not during mission phase. Yes, so it's half the cost, but you're doing 1 less damage, which doesn't really seem particularly fair. You'd have thought maybe it'd have been 1 cost for 1 damage, and then maybe long tom should actually have been 3, for example. And then the other one here is the artillery bombardment. Now this is quite fun. Deal 1 structure damage to each attacking mech or each blocking mech. Use this ability during a mission. So this is quite nice because when you look at the terrains in this deck, there are 2 of them: Deep Lake and Heavy Woods. So we'll put this in there, and then we have Heavy Woods. Heavy Woods basically says prevent 2 damage to the target, which basically means, I'm going to put this in there. I'm going to put this in the. Come on! Oh, for God's sake, why can't I have one of these? I didn't want a heavy fog. I wanted Heavy Woods. Okie dokie. So this says prevent 2 damage to the target. Okay, it basically gives it 2 armor, which is reasonable. And we have Deep Lake. I quite like Deep Lake. I've used Deep Lake in the Long Way Down deck, the Steel Viper, kill everything kind of thing, and it is quite fun. It definitely changes the game mechanics. Mechs do not receive overheat damage during the mission. At the end of the mission, scrap each mech that received 3 or more structure damage. Well, I've got an artillery bombardment that deals 1 structure damage to each attacking mech, so if I can get a couple more on there, I can scrap it using Deep Lake. If I can get 3 of these artillery bombardments out, and I've got Deep Lake sat there, then effectively I can kill a unit every time, which is quite nice. The trouble is getting them on the table. They are quite expensive at a 3 cost. Okay, and then we've got a few other bits in here. There was the dropship intercept, which is the St. Ives mission, and again I'm a bit of a fan of this one, whereby you can deplete any attacking unit. So you take the hit, but it depletes, which means it has to reload the next turn and then untap the following turn. So it basically takes it out of play for a couple of turns. And Heavy Fog, the wonderful damage reduction card, 2 less attack and receives 2 less damage. Okay, so this was played. The idea kind of has some sort of there's a couple of nice combos in there, but what I was finding was, and this is Phantom Blue's notes, where he said, I could get the artillery out quickly. I was on a good start. The only game I won against this deck, similar to the 12 Angry Mechs, and this was because I could outproduce his mechs with my artillery. But even then he got 1 or 2 mechs out, and it was imperative for me to drop Heavy Woods to slow him from wasting my artillery, which is even more important in this deck than the stockpile. I was running L and M obviously, and T for dropship intercept and Heavy Fog. The problem came down to when I had to spend 3 for Heavy Woods without a single mongoose, spend 3 for Heavy Woods, without which a single mongoose could run rampant on my backline, and I just lost 3 in the deployment. and the resources for the Thumper in a long time, and I would quickly fall behind. So literally, people would just attack the artillery. The heavy woods would reduce that. I'm not sure if heavy woods is quite the right choice. And while on a side note, heavy woods says prevent 2 damage. And we can compare this to Fog Shrouded Moors, which says basically each mech does 1 less attack. So if that's 1 unit, then Fog Shrouded Moors prevents 1 damage and Heavy Woods prevents 2. If that's 2 units, then Fog Shrouded Moors prevents 2 and Heavy Woods prevents 2. And if it's 3 units, Fog Shrouded Moors prevents 3 and Heavy Woods prevents 2 only. The thing here is the cost of the artillery. If you look at Long Tom, the chances are at 0.3, he's probably going to pick that off with a dasher. So, and the Thumper battery being the other one. Let's put that in there. And again, it's a 0.3. So, Heavy Woods is the right terrain in here over Fog Shrouded. Fog Shrouded much better in the actual Mechless deck that came after this, and we'll look at that at a later point for another reason. So basically it was tempo loss, and he could, or the opponents could, attack the artillery, kill them off, and then deploy more units, which meant things just got out of hand. One thing that Greg P and I discussed was the fact that the deck needs to last about 3 rounds for an artillery to start coming out. Most of you probably noticed, but in the case you didn't, the lockdown comes with Deep Lake and Artillery Bombardment, which all costs 3, so I need 12 resources and 4 deployments. Remember, no crusades and no false maps here for it to come out, and the other guy usually just pick off the Artillery Bombardment straight away. So I went for strip mines in order to give myself an extra resource early, which makes sense. Think tanks, not sure about 6 there, but for M&T, fair enough. Field construction site, deploy scrap for 2 more, having tapped it, so you can get 3 out of that. Logistics and the black market. He says the resources weren't a problem, and he used Comstar support in there. Maybe not. There was discussion here about whether you go Kurita and use Takashi and play Hidden Location. I think Hidden Location might be viable on the long toms as well as just Takashi in that respect. But that means requires P, and he's running Tactics, so it means you drop the missions and the dropship intercept, which he's not sure about, and etc. So this is just trying to make something work, an artillery deck to work. I'm still not convinced of it, even in BT2. So, you know, with all of that, how do you make an LMPT deck work? You don't. And there's a note here about time bomb sucking. I agree with the comment. Whether it sucks or not is another question. You know, so there's a little bit of an alternative. So this is the Chin deck. This is designed by a guy called Vince Chin, and Barry Young posted this. And I like this because I think this is creative. This is kind of nearly a Mechless deck, but not. And I'm putting this in here to see the thought process. Okay. So he went 6-2 with this. So he won 6, lost 2, and he won the first game in every match with this. And it wasn't until his opponent sideboarded enough creative terraformings that they could actually win. So 6 Spider and 6 Hussar, free deploy blockers. That's all they are. They are cannon fodder. They are way to block. 6 disguised coordinates, 3 hidden reserves, 3 thumper batteries, 3 civilian settlements, 4 time bombs, St. Isles salvage crew, and a dropship site. So how the hell does this work? Well, basically you redirect your disguise coordinates to either one of these resources with lots of counters on them, or to your time bomb. And when we look at time bomb is quite unique in the fact that it has a very high cost armor structure. It's a 5 cost. So your little dash is going to bounce across it. 2 little dashes are only going to do 1 damage to this, 1 structure to this, and it's got 3 to start with. This is why when I played the game that I played against Chester, that I ran guerrilla support, because of those reasons. So you then put civilian settlement on them. Now, civ settlement is different in the respect that it returns damage. So for every 3 damage dealt by attacking mechs, so that's what they deal, that's what they allocate, not what they not structure. So a dasher deals 3, and therefore this bounces 1 back to the opponent's stockpile. And if it's on the time bomb, 3 does not scratch that 5 armor. And effectively there is a lock. And then the thumper batteries in here are a cheap source of additional damage, popping out 2 every now and again. Okay, so that was the original deck. Block, block, block. Push it to the side when you need to, and then just every time he attacks, you plink a few from the stockpile. What Barry did was he looked at the deck with Shadowhawk as his playing companion, and they said this could be a lot better with less mechs in it, or even no mechs. You could put in some other things like strip mining to give you a resource boost earlier. You could go Steiner and use Melissa in order to recycle the disguise coordinates for only 1 card, not 2. You could go Rasselhag for airstrikes, or possibly even what's the one that puts tap it, put 3 counters on it. It's not Salvage Crew. Staging ground, and this is why you need creative terraforming in there, because civilian settlement will kill you. Okay, so that's kind of after, but there. So what else was kicking around at the time? Because people were talking about Mechless decks, people were throwing ideas around, people were trying to create them. So this is written by Rob Matthews, posted as Merrick, the first UK Nationals champion. So this is something that he found. He was not playing a Mechless deck. It had some Assassins, Centurions and Wolfhounds in for early turn blocking, but the guts of the deck was 20 politics, 6 Comstar News Bureau, 6 disguise coordinates, and Melissa Steiner Davian. So the idea here, let's just look at this. Comstar News Bureau. So this is the one which I can't type. The News Bureau. So this is a very, very weak 2/1. But it says gain a resource for each card you control that provides politics. Okay, it costs you 3 to start with, and it's a resource. So if I've got 5 politics on the table, I tap this, I get 5 resources. So the idea being that you put a politics card down as a card under construction and put 5 counters on it. So each of those counters requires 2 damage to remove. So that's going to take 11, and 1 more to kill the card. So that's going to take 11 damage to kill that card. Which means if you've got enough of these out, you can create more resources than your opponent can destroy. And that's the kind of battle here, the balance here. So you ludicrously overbuild it with bureaus, and then you could infinitely recycle disguise coordinates and redirect all the attacking mechs to the card under construction. I don't think that works anymore, because disguise coordinates, and I'll get the legal site, and a CUC is not a site. So people used to overbuild them and then redirect them, and then you can't redirect them because the CUC isn't a site. And that's why on disguise coordinates you've got this any legal target clause added to it. instead of just the original, other than the scrap heap. So effectively you were using a legal target. Okie dokie. And then the final kill was a sat bomb with 50 plus counters. For the post Mech Warrior twist, put the Civ settlement on it in the Chin style, and then, you know, bang, there you go. So let's look at sat bombing. And this is just a crazy card, and it's actually really bad. Scrap sat bombing when it's returned. Deal 1 damage to one site for each 2 construction counters over it. So that's your best damage dealer. Now that's actually pretty poor returns, even with the politics card and tapping news bureaus to get double or whatever else it is because of your politics. Sat bombing is just bad value. The reason it works in this deck is because Comstar's News Bureau, if you get enough politics on the table, could allow you to generate a lot of value that way. The thing was that in Arsenal, we ended up with, Mech Warrior, this got replaced. And this got replaced by Corridor of Fire. And this is worth noting because this became the de facto bombing card. It costs 4, it has 3M and 5P on it. Scrap when revealed, choose any site and deal damage to it equal to the number of construction counters above the cost. So that's 1 damage for 1 counter. And that upped the ante quite drastically because your efficiency has just gone up. Here we go, one damage for each counter, whereas sat bombing is 2. It's half as effective, and you're paying 2 7p versus 4 3m 3p, which is nothing in that respect. Sat bombing at 2, so an additional counter on sat bombing is basically the same as Corridor of Fire. So if I've got 4 counters on my sat bombing, I can, so that's 2 for the cost of it and 2 for the 2 additional counters. I deal 1 damage to the stockpile. With Corridor of Fire, I've just paid the cost of it. Now let's put 6 counters on sat bombing. I'm now doing 2 damage to the stockpile. With Corridor of Fire, I am doing identical. Now let's put 8 counters on here. With sat bombing, I'm doing 3 to the stockpile. With Corridor of Fire, I'm doing 4. And it escalates and escalates and escalates. So the efficiency of Corridor of Fire over saturation bombing is one of the main factors that that made the Mechless deck work. I mean, personally, I think they should have nerfed this instead of disguised coordinates. I think there was something interesting about disguised coordinates. It lent for interesting gameplay, where this is just a stack 'em high and let it rip. Fireball. If you played Magic, it's Fireball, isn't it? It's just add lots and lots of counters, and the more you add, the more damage you do. It's not particularly exciting and interesting. It's very, very. It's like putting a picture hook in with a sledgehammer, basically. Whereas at least Disguised Coordinates added some interesting gameplay and tactics. Okay, so here we go. And I think this is in time order. So this is a very untested Rasselhag deck that Donald Lim, Focht as his name was at the time, or call sign at the time, created. And he was the one that basically used or created the Mechless deck in a reasonable entirety. And this is it. And he went for Rasselhag, and there are a couple of reasons for this. Staging ground being really important here. Let's look at this. Here's staging ground. Tap, put 3 counters on one of your command cards under construction. Well, Corridor of Fire is a command instruction. Show that card to all players. Note the wording on, where are we? Where's Corridor of Fire card? It says scrap when revealed. So showing is not the same as revealing it. Revealing is basically the part of the activation phase. Showing, or when you activate the card itself, you reveal it and apply its effects. Showing it is just there it is, sat there. So this is quite powerful because for one resource, I can put 3 counters on it, and then I can tap it again next turn and put 3 counters on it, and tap it again next turn and put 3 counters on it. Where if you compare it to field construction site, it's a tap for 1, scrap it for 2 more, so it goes. The benefit of this is that 5 armor and 3 structure, and again that's a dasher bounces off it. Okay, so there are a few other things in here that are interesting. Let's look at the Rasselhag cards, because there aren't many of them. Where we got Prince? Where is he? Here he is. Scrap one of your resource cards in play and draw 2 cards. Use this ability during your deploy phase. So he's an enabler to recycle cards. We've got Tira, and she shouldn't be underestimated. You can pop her on the table and do a structure damage as an arrow 4, which is quite good. Remove her from the game, take an extra turn, skip the missions phase. Well, remember with Corridor of Fire, you don't activate this during your missions phase. When you reveal it, it just goes off and you do that straight away. So she circumvents that, and just so you use her, put loads of counters on Corridor of Fire, scrap her, have another go, put loads more counters on Corridor of Fire, and then reveal it and do loads of damage. No mission required, etc. etc. Lost Tech caches is interesting. Let's just have a quick look at some of these. And Lost Tech cache, scrap a card from your hand and gain 2 resources. It's okay, I suppose. I think I'd rather have some other things. Booty cache. Booty cache is interesting. Remove when damaging an opponent's stockpile, put a booty counter on it. Remove this and get 2R for each counter removed. So it's a resource generator. So the thumper batteries and the arrow 4s are used to plink the stockpile to pile the booty cache high. And remember, Tyra can do that as well. And your opponent isn't going very far because you've hit them with airstrikes close to home, which is a command card which works with staging ground, and it costs 2 6p. Anything above this, you scrap that number of cards from your opponent's hand. So the idea here is you get 7 counters on here and you obliterate your opponent's hand, and unless they're running any sort of additional card draw, or hand replenishing stuff like hidden reserves, they're basically top decking. And then you've got treachery. I'm not sure why treachery is in there, and to tap them out, but it seems strange because there's no Civ settlement or whatever else. 3 disguised coordinates, 3 OMTs. What's OMTs? I'm not sure OMT should be in there. It's not OmniMech Podcache. It should. Maybe it's Operations Advisory Council. Maybe not. Operations Liaisons. Maybe. Maybe it's PMTs. Let's just put resource in there. Maybe it's outreach mercenary training. I wonder if it is outreach. Because yes, there you go. You've got your P and your T there, and you're running think tank, corridors of fire, and munitions. It seems very unbalanced. You've got 4, 13, 16. I suppose you have got 20 resources. I question. Obviously, you can see where, if you know the Mechless deck, this came out, the Lost Tech caches came out, the Prince came out, and a lot of the others had value. but you can see where things go. So this is another nearly Mechless deck from Mechboy. 4 Corridors of Fire, maybe one too many, maybe. There's a discussion whether you run 3 or 4. 4 Black Markets, again, seems really high, but then this is possibly pre-Arsenal. No Wolf Hunter either. 6 Staging Grounds, 1 Tira, 3 Unnamed Resources. Now I like this. I think this is a really good card and very, very underrated in this deck. So let's look at unnamed sources. Scrap it when revealed. You've paid 2 for it. Draw as many cards as are in your hand. Then choose and restock as many cards from your hand. So if you've got 6 cards in your hand, you draw 6, restock any of those 6. So this is a great hand cycler. And it's a free deploy. So the only real downside of this is the cost, and you're playing a deck that's got loads and loads of resources in it. People worked out that you need lots and lots of resources to build up a big bomb card at this point. So this is actually a lot better than people give credit for, especially in this deck. So you've got unnamed sources. Operations Liaison is another alternative. Operations Liaison costs a resource. Tap, look at the top 5 cards of your stockpile, put one of those cards in your hand, restock the remaining cards in any order, and use that. It's a bit slow in comparison. You're probably looking at the same 5 cards, probably. Depends on whether you've got any draw and what you've drawn. But it's a 1/5 and you've got to defend it, and it costs a resource to do it. And it's still 2. Whereas if you look at unnamed sources, it's actually probably draw the same amount of cards, but it's an additional deployment. Okay, this sticks around. I'm not sure. I'd probably in this deck prefer unnamed sources. Hidden reserves to draw cards. We've seen that. It's a very common card. Literally pay 1, draw 3. Rapid deployment. This card floats under the radar for this by such a long way. Unbelievably good in this deck. And people really underestimate it. Scrap when revealed. Until the end of turn, you may pay 1 resource as often as you want to gain an additional deployment. And that's just mental. That is just absolutely mental in this case. Because I can pay a card, I can pay R to deploy R, to tap that for an R, to deploy another R, to tap that for another R, to deploy that, to play a hidden reserves, to put down a 0 cost resource which I'll pay to get an additional deployment and pull out the other 2 or 3 cards that I've just picked up with rapid deployment. In this deck is absolutely berserk. And a lot of people didn't understand the nuances in Mechless around the potential of building up a hand, not putting much on the table, but building up a hand until you drew this, and then just playing this and blatting about 10 resources onto the table in 1 turn. It's a mental card. It doesn't get the credit it's due because it works very, very well in a particular type of deck. This one, for example, and it's pretty lackluster in most other decks. You need the resources, and a lot of them run a lot closer to the ground. Mechless is quite unique in the respect that you've got resources coming out of every orifice you can think of. Mech Hanger is another alternative, and again, tap, make an additional deployment. And then we have 8 politics, 7 logistics, and 5 Comstar reports. note the staging grounds in there. Okay, so we have 3 spiders and some centurions as blockers. The spiders are free deploys, so there you go. It's not easy to play, but the idea basically being you block, you redirect using your disguised coordinates, you build what you want, and then you build a big corridor of fire and literally kaboom, do what the car shows you and puts it onto the tin, with the corridor of fire literally throwing that out. Okay, there are variations. Here's another one. This one was actually played at a tournament, and this was played on the 19th of, or posted on the 19th of February 98. So we have 7 logistics, 7 politics, 4 Comstar support, 2 field construction sites, 2 strip mining, which feels a bit low. Anybody that puts 2 strip mining in, I worry about, because it defeats the whole point. Realistically, 3 black market, 5 staging, 3 unnamed sources, 2 operation liaisons, 4 hidden reserves, 4 mech hangars, 5 civilian settlements. Jeez, that really is trying to get that out early. Again, 3, you've got 3 regions, seems a bit crazy. Disguised coordinates, 2 corridors of fire, seems a touch low. Thumper battery arrow 4, and we have Harken. Oops. Oh. Here he is, scrap a resource and draw 2 cards, which is a deck cycler. Why not use operations over him? I'm not sure, unless it's the armor structure of him. Okay. So this is the tournament report, and I just realised I've forgotten one bit that I'll recap on in a minute that fits in the middle here. So deck's very hard to play. Won an 8-person 5-round Swiss at the local card shop. First round versus Sandhurst. The little mechs couldn't do anything. He had 11 mechs when I got my lock, and then 1 Sandhurst, and I have Tira and a fireball for 52 damage. Second game he went with arms reduction. Too bad it doesn't affect staging ground. Yes, arms reduction does not affect staging ground. We'll check that. Arms reduction. Arms reduction says you may not spend more than RR on construction. Staging ground, where is it? Here it is. No R paid, put 3 construction counters. So gets around that very nicely. And Civ Settlement, probably not the best in here against that, but big corridor. C3, too slow, can't attack, can't do enough, didn't have enough C3 mechs, boom. Wolf Headhunter, great deck versus mechs. When he found out my lock, he conceded. He plays with too many missions and single combats with his Headhunter, which are completely ineffective when you're playing a mechless deck. Headhunter, roll a die when you deal damage to something. 1 to 2, nothing. 3 to 4, no effect. On a 6, scrap it. And single combat is choose any 2 units and put them in battle. Obviously, you choose the Headhunter, roll the dice and hope to kill them regardless of whatever else. Completely ineffective against a deck with no mechs. Round 4, Dash Wolf. This match was close. I didn't play it right at the beginning, and I lost all 3 black markets in his second attack. That's pretty unlucky. I've had that happen in a game where I lost both black markets and Solaris contacts, or the 1 Solaris contacts that hadn't already been scrapped, in an Alpha Strike Saladin, and that was game over just from 1 little Saladin. He probably should have played the unnamed sources and didn't play it. Second and third game, I got the lock by turn 4, drew strip minings out, resourced him. He had to take a couple of home. Boom again. Finals, Dash Wolf Boy again, same draw, bang. Okay. So lock is pretty simple. Disguise to attack your command cards with Civ Settlement on them, and BMC the disguise coordinates back into your hand. So the other option instead of BMC is Melissa Steiner Davian, and the thing with that is you've got to go Steiner, and Staging Ground pretty much outclasses that in this deck. It's better value for money. You get one Melissa Steiner Davian, which you may or may not draw, and you're probably going to run 2 to 3 black markets. Whereas Staging Grounds, you will have a load of them, and you can draw those with war funds. So it's a lot better. So this is the post I was talking about. This is quite close, or this is probably as close as you could get to the Mechless deck before the Mechless deck became the Mechless deck, so to speak. So this wasn't quite there. It was very close. So this is my friend Beaker, and here is his Mechless version. 8 politics, 6 logistics, 4 staging grounds, 2 Comstar supports, mainly for munitions, 1 Comstar investment. In regards to the support, I have 2 cards in the deck that require munitions, so the Comstar support is for that. If you don't have it, munitions, the buyout is only 4. That seems a little... I'm not quite so sure. Infinite recursion, black market connections, mercenary relations division, and mercenary contact. This is the easiest part to scrap. This is the easy part. Scrap the contents to the black market and get them back with the relations, and then do them all over again. This is... Whoa, hold on. What's going on here? We've got mercenary relations. Mercenary relations. Take a mercenary card from your scrap heap and put it in your hand. And then we've got the mercenary contract, which is here, which counts as a mercenary card. It's a 0, it's nothing else, so you put this back. So this allows you a black market recursion engine. So black market, scrap. Let's just make sure it's all clear for those of you that are not familiar with black market. So here's black market. Tap scrap 2 cards to return a card from your scrap heap. And if you've got those 2 in there and you play with 2 mercenary relations divisions, you can just tap both of those and bring them back. So you've got an infinite black market loop, which is quite interesting, quite fun. Airstrikes close to home, we've mentioned. That's the hand killer. Aerospace fighter mission to deal damage. I don't think that aerospace is the card here. Here's the original 5p. That's quite expensive for 5 damage. And then here's the recosted version, which is 5p for 5 damage. Yeah, so there you go. So basically, airstrikes as soon as possible. Wait for the right time for the others. If you're getting killed by a single mech, do a couple of internals with these. Yeah, and then you miss route, disguised, and guerrilla support. So guerrilla support is actually, as I said, kind of interesting. This is how you save alive. Misroutes are standard, no explanation. However, the disguised and the guerrilla support is special. First, I never activate the guerrilla support. You can put 9 counters on a revealed guerrilla support, which means it takes 19 points of damage to kill it. This is when CUCs were deemed to be sites, and you could attack it. It's in here because it's the biggest cost non-mech if you don't have a resource type that Rasselhag can use. Of course, I use disguise coordinates to send the mechs to the under construction guerrilla support. For those who overbuild a card, do this. Remember that an unblocked mech reveals it and removes all excess counters. So that's a problem, and I just no. It's a CUC. Don't bother. I think guerrilla support is hardy enough at 4/9 to do that, and I think that proved it. And here you go. Here, card draw engines, mech hanger, operations liaison, unnamed sources ×3, and a hidden reserves. In order to win, the deck needs to draw a lot of cards and deploy them every single turn. And then underworld connections. I love Underworld Connections. We'll have a quick look at this. Underworld Connections, basically tap, replace one counter with two counters. Why it just didn't say add one counter, I don't know. But there you go. There's probably some planning there for a card that never got reduced. So you can misroute them and then keep them perpetually misrouted with unnamed resources. Comstar Technicians. Where's the Technicians? Tap 2 resources, put 1 communicate counter on this, use this ability, remove a communicate counter and prevent 1 damage to a site. Seems a very, very expensive way of preventing damage. Why not just run a terrain? Maybe this is pre-terrain. And then you go. Use Tyra as soon as possible, only take another turn, not for the other ability. Underworld Connections, remember that everything in this game is a counter. Yes. Keep misroutes going for a while, put more counters on the investment, give yourself another construction counter or add another structure damage of a mech by giving it more counters with them, with the Underworld, so you can abuse Underworld, etc, etc. So this isn't quite there. This isn't quite there, but it was a step in the right place. The thoughts and the ideas were there. Certainly when you look at where Mechless was, it was probably here. It was probably here without that bit in the middle. Okay, so where did Mechless end up? And I'm going to jump ahead, and I've got to go and find something. So let me go and look for it. There we go. So here we go. So these are the deck lists. So let's look at where this ended up. 2 rapid deployment, 3 mech hangar, 4 disguise coordinates, 3 fog shrouded moors. Now the fog shrouded moors are there for the reasons I mentioned earlier. If you have a normal group attacking, then it is unlikely that 1 mech will kill a resource unless it's something like a Dasher Super Nav. So they're going to attack in 2. So fog shrouded moors, a group of 2. So that's as good as heavy woods, and could be better when they attack in a group of 3. 3 corridors of fire, 5 hidden reserves and a Tyra to draw on them. 5 advanced manufacturing techniques. So let's quick look at that. This gives L, it only costs 1. Add 2 construction counters to a card under construction that has at least 5 constructors on it, or 3 if it has 8. So that's like staging ground for your corridor of fire. 5 logistics, 1 munitions, 1 politics, 5 war funds, 5 staging grounds, 5 field construction sites, 3 strip mines. Feels a little low on the strip mines. 2 resource broker. I'm not sure about resource broker in here, to be honest. The average for resource broker is 1.5 if you tap it, untap it, tap it, untap it, tap it, untap it. If you've got your lock with your disguised coordinates down, this is well worth it. This is gold, because you can tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it until you decide to bomb. Tap it, scrap Tira, or scrap Tira, do it, untap it, and then put all the counters across. So it is a banking effect, and it's probably better than some of the other stuff around. 3 think tanks, 3 black markets. Very important, 3 black markets for this, because you need to be able to recycle disguised coordinates. If you lose Tira, if you lose a corridor of fire, then there's only 3 in the deck, you're in trouble. So that's why you've got that. And where are we? Do we have rapid max? Yeah, they don't seem to have the draw power in here. Well, what am I missing? 2, 5, 9, 12, 15, 21, 20, 31, 32, 33, 38, 43, 48, 50. There's a card missing, I think, maybe. There just doesn't seem to be the unnamed sources draw power in here. What draws? Staging, war, politics, manufacture. Yeah. So no cycle through here. This is an interesting one. And you'll see in the sideboard, unlikely love affair just to get rid of Kai or Vic. Arrow 4 to stop your opponent recycling with BMCs. 1 rapid deployment, 1 disguise, 1 head reserves, 1 field construction site. Very that's the deck that was used, or that's the deck that came 7th. I think Fox deck, I think he came mid-20s, was very similar, maybe a couple of cards different. We'll look at that when we actually do the full deck list. But this shows, and again, you know, Mech Hanger gives you an extra deployment. Where are you drawing? We've got to draw is hidden reserves. Yeah. And then rapid deployment, as I said, you could literally fill your hand up and then just splurge onto the table. The thing when playing against Mechless is attacking the stockpile can be risky, because if you put it in their scrap heap and they're running that many BMCs, you're effectively filtering their deck for them. So here's the example. Okay, to win the game, you really want a Corridor of Fire, and you probably want a Tira to double up on that. You know, you only need 10 resources, tap them, put 10 on Corridor of Fire, play Tira, tap them again and add a few more, and you can do 20 damage quite easily, which, depending at the point of the game, could easily be a finish. So, as there's only 4 in there, well, there's 3 Corridors of Fire. Where are we? Yeah, 3 Corridors of Fire and a Tira in there. The chances are you're going to get 1 every 15 cards. So by attacking the stockpile, you can actually give them the draw that they're looking for, because they're running that many BMCs. You know they'll BMC for it anyway. So the best place for Corridor of Fire and Tira is probably the bottom of the deck, where you can't scrap it and it can't be drawn because of that. It's quite an interesting quandary. The other way, obviously, is to, well, scrap all 3 BMCs, which, you know, there's a decent chance of that. And that's one of the things that actually happened to Zvi. But there we go. So there you go. That's all kind of all the not the theory, but what people were thinking and the thought processes behind creating a Mechless deck. Certainly the cornerstones of it are the disguise coordinates in order to be able to survive. As you saw earlier with the artillery deck, you need to get things down quickly, and you need to survive, otherwise you're toast. The change from 2 counters with sat bombing to 1 counter with Corridor of Fire, fundamental, absolutely fundamental. And in that case, I often think that Corridor of Fire should have been nerfed or changed instead of disguise coordinates. But there you go. Tira was obviously designed with this kind of deck in mind. The field construction sites being quite robust, and the fog-shrouded moors. Fog-shrouded moors on those, you know, just an absolute killer. absolute killer. You hit you hit your field construction site. You're one off killing it. Next turn he taps it, puts a counter on, drops Tira, scraps her, taps it again and puts another counter on, and then scraps it for 2 more. Your heart just sinks. But that's the way the deck works. It's very good against certain archetypes. Certainly when you look at the other things going along here, it would have smashed. It would have smashed the C3 deck. The only thing here would be if you'd have brought out one of Kai or Vic early. Yeah. The same goes for John Hunker's deck. Sigmund's Lamb's deck would have been quite interesting because the elemental points could be quite strong. Peter's deck beat it. Barry Young would have struggled. And to be fair, Terry and Shu Yao probably wouldn't have done particularly well because they just haven't got the damage output. Lightning does 3, Cavalry does 2, Cyrano does 1, Hussar does 1. Put a Fog-Shrouded Moors down, they're doing nothing damage-wise. You are very much reliant on your Sandhurst drawing and upping your damage. And you'll note in here that the sideboards are very similar, but Terry runs a Financial Collapse, which in this case isn't actually as good as you think. Scrap it when it's revealed, so you have to do it on your turn, and when your opponent has a card with lots of counters on it. Remove all construction counters from the cards in the opponent's construction region, distribute them evenly as you want. So you have to do it on your turn. So if that's the way, if that's your counter to it, then your Mechless player is literally going to go resource, 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 slap them all down, and then go turn, Tyra, corridor, tap everything, put it on the corridor, scrap Tyra, deploy 2, slap everything on corridor, and hit you. So the Financial Collapse isn't going to have a chance to go off because they'll learn about it and just do it all on their turn, and you can't trigger it. It's probably better in this case against planned Big Mech decks more than anything else. Yeah, so anyway, I've diverted again. So that is the kind of thought process behind the Mechless deck, where it came from. It was a challenge. It's not easy to play. If you want to try it, go put the cards together and say to your mate, I am using a card that is banned officially by the DCI rules, but I'm going to play it and I want to learn to play it, because it's not an easy thing to do. It is a strong deck. It is a powerful deck. I think there's a kind of fog magic deck that then plays Fireball kind of thing to win. It's very, very much like that. And it was played very, very well by Zvi, who was a Pro Tour Magic player as well. Anyway, I'm digressing. This is the theory behind Mechless, not who won or who did well in '98 or whatever else. So you can see the core cards. Core cards being probably staging ground and field construction site from a resource point of view. Corridor of Fire from an absolute damage point of view because of the bonuses on there. Hidden Reserves to actually draw cards. Disguise Coordinates to deflect any attack into something that's going to do not a great deal and basically nullify that, and then build your bombs and let it go. And there you go. There it is. There it is. Try it. Give it a go. See what you think. It is a very, very interesting point in Battletech history. Next up, I'm going to do the abortion that was my deck at the British UK Nationals, which was the first tournament I ever played for, and I would not advise anybody playing to play that deck. I will show you it. I will do the round by round report and tell you where I ended up. But that's next time. That's another day. It's another dollar. Until then, thank you for listening to my inane burblage, and I hope you're all well, and look after yourselves, because it's a big bad world out there. Take care.